conceding too.
Yep. Again, throwing it down the face of Ruslan Ilyasova to give him 41.
Still 2 points over.
Could LeBron James overcome a roster that featured 4 All-Stars in their absolute prime? The 2018 NBA Finals opened at Oracle Arena, with the Cleveland Cavaliers facing a Golden State Warriors team that many experts considered unbeatable. LeBron James arrived in Oakland carrying a burden unlike any seen in modern basketball history. His Cavaliers had survived 2 7-game series just to reach this stage, and the statistical gap between the 2 finalists reached historic levels. While the Warriors boasted Kevin Durant and Stephen Curry, the Cleveland rotation relied heavily on role players who struggled for consistency throughout the postseason. The narrative surrounding the series centered on whether one individual could disrupt a dynasty built on collective efficiency. This matchup represented the 4th consecutive meeting between these 2 franchises, but the talent disparity had never been more pronounced. Cleveland entered the series without a second All-Star to alleviate the pressure, leaving LeBron James as the sole elite creator against a Golden State defense designed to swarm. The roster around him featured shooters who often lacked the defensive versatility required to match the Warriors' transition game. Analysts pointed to the defensive rating of the Cavaliers as a primary reason for the lopsided betting odds. Golden State held every statistical advantage, from perimeter shooting to defensive rebounding, creating a scenario where Cleveland needed an outlier performance to stay competitive. LeBron James faced the task of neutralizing a team that had won 2 of the previous 3 championships, with a supporting cast often described as the least talented of his many finals runs. The series felt like a foregone conclusion to many observers before the first tip-off. LeBron James established his physical presence early at Oracle Arena by scoring 24 points before the halftime buzzer. He utilized a specific tactical approach to dismantle the Golden State defense by hunting mismatches at the top of the key. Instead of attacking primary wing defenders like Klay Thompson, James used high ball screens to force Stephen Curry into defensive switches. Once the switch occurred, James utilized his significant size advantage to drive into the paint or create space for perimeter jumpers. This strategy neutralized the effectiveness of the Warriors' help defense, as the isolation forced Curry to defend the point of attack alone. James finished the half with elite efficiency, converting most of his field goal attempts while absorbing contact near the rim. His ability to dictate the pace of the game forced the Warriors to react to his individual movements. The defensive adjustments from Golden State highlighted the pressure James exerted on their championship-level system during that first half. Steve Kerr's defense typically relied on pre-switching and aggressive rotations to keep Draymond Green positioned as a help-side rim protector. James negated this by initiating his attacks early in the shot clock, giving the Warriors little time to communicate their assignments. This tactical shift forced the Warriors to abandon their standard defensive schemes as they began to shade extra help toward James or experiment with double teams. By drawing multiple defenders toward the lane, James created passing lanes for his teammates even as his own scoring remained the primary threat. The efficiency of James during these 2 quarters challenged the belief that Golden State could simply outlast him through defensive depth. His performance turned a projected lopsided game into a tactical struggle. The 4th quarter at Oracle Arena transformed into a relentless display of individual endurance. Cleveland remained tied with the defending champions because James shouldered a historic offensive workload. Every possession followed a predictable but unstoppable pattern where James dictated the spacing. He exploited every mismatch, forcing switches that left smaller guards or slower big men isolated against him on the perimeter. This strategy prevented the Warriors from initiating their transition game, as the slower pace favored Cleveland's half-court execution. The score remained deadlocked as James surpassed the 40-point mark midway through the quarter. His ability to sustain this level of production against elite defenders like Draymond Green and Kevin Durant kept the underdog Cavaliers within reach of a series-altering road victory. LeBron James drove into the paint and finished a contested layup through contact from Draymond Green during the final 6 minutes of regulation. James stepped back for a long-distance three-pointer over the outstretched arm of Stephen Curry on a subsequent possession. He continued to manipulate the defense, drawing 3 defenders into the lane before whipping a pass to the corner for an open teammate. James scored or assisted on nearly every Cleveland bucket in this stretch, physically overmatching his primary defenders to reach the 50-point threshold. His final field goal of regulation, a driving layup that gave Cleveland a late lead, showcased his refusal to settle for perimeter shots when the game was on the line. Reaching 50 points in a finals game against a dynasty required James to eliminate almost every margin for error. The tactical significance of this stretch lay in how he neutralized the Warriors' collective talent through pure physical presence. Golden State could not find a single defender capable of stopping James without committing a foul or leaving a shooter open. This forced the Warriors to play a reactive style of basketball that was uncharacteristic of their usual dominance. James transformed the game into a battle of attrition, proving that a single player could dismantle a complex defense through sheer force and court vision. The efficiency of his scoring during these high-leverage minutes put the Warriors on the brink of losing home court advantage. Cleveland held a tie game with seconds remaining when George Hill stepped to the free throw line at Oracle Arena. Hill made the first shot to tie the score, but his second attempt bounced off the back of the rim.
Durant for 3. Mooney, little pump fake, double pump in.
His former team has to love that. This is going.
And it in.
J.R. Smith secured the offensive rebound over Kevin Durant, positioning the Cavaliers for a potential game-winning shot. Smith chose to dribble toward the perimeter as the clock expired, rather than attempting a layup or passing to an open LeBron James. This decision forced the game into overtime and negated the momentum James had established through 48 minutes of play. The technical error reflected a catastrophic lapse in situational awareness that immediately neutralized Cleveland's offensive advantage. LeBron James stood near the top of the key with his arms outstretched in a gesture of pure bewilderment as the horn sounded. The visual evidence of James pointing toward the basket while J.R. Smith remained stationary remains one of the most significant psychological moments in NBA history. This reaction signaled the exact point where the individual brilliance of James collided with the structural failure of his supporting cast. James had played nearly every minute of regulation, producing a historic stat line, only to see the opportunity for a win vanish due to a mental error. His posture during the transition to the bench suggested a total depletion of confidence in the collective execution of his team. The shock on his face indicated that the physical effort required to carry the roster had finally reached its limit. The overtime period at Oracle Arena saw a complete reversal of the competitive tension maintained during regulation. Klay Thompson opened the scoring for Golden State with a three-pointer that went uncontested by the Cleveland defense. LeBron James attempted to respond with a drive to the basket, but the speed seen in the first 4 quarters appeared diminished. Draymond Green and Kevin Durant combined to trap James on the perimeter, forcing the ball out of his hands and into teammates who struggled to create shots. Golden State utilized their ball movement to find Shaun Livingston for mid-range jumpers and Stephen Curry for transition layups. Cleveland failed to recover on defensive rotations, allowing the Warriors to build a double-digit lead in the opening minutes of the extra session. The shift from a tie game to a blowout resulted from the collapse of Cleveland's defensive focus, following the error at the end of regulation. LeBron James had functioned as the primary engine for both scoring and playmaking, but the mental burden of the missed opportunity neutralized his physical dominance in the final minutes. Golden State targeted this lack of intensity by pushing the pace of the game. The Warriors scored 17 points in the 5-minute period, exposing the reality that Cleveland could not sustain high-level execution without a perfect psychological state. A single athlete cannot compensate for a collective loss of composure against a functional offensive system, as demonstrated by the final score of the extra period.
Steal. Jordan Bell with the crossover. Jordan Bell with the running hook and the foul.
That's what makes it impressive. Zips her.
Yeah, Nick, that was a sloppy pass. All doing this without a Curry field.
LeBron James concluded the night with 51 points, setting a personal record for his highest scoring output in an NBA Finals game. Historical records confirm that this remains the highest individual point total ever recorded in a finals loss. James carried the offensive burden for the Cleveland Cavaliers by attacking the rim and hitting long-range jumpers against a rotating cast of elite defenders at Oracle Arena. The performance required him to facilitate nearly every possession while facing defensive pressure from Draymond Green and Kevin Durant. That output illustrated the maximum capacity of a single player to influence a championship game. The final score signaled that even an all-time individual scoring night was insufficient to overcome the collective depth of the Golden State Warriors. Evidence of the physical toll of the game appeared during the remaining contests of the series. LeBron James wore a significant protective wrap on his right hand during media sessions, a consequence of striking a whiteboard in the locker room after the regulation period ended. The action revealed the intense psychological pressure of leading an outmatched roster against a dynasty. He played through the extra period and the subsequent 3 games with a damaged shooting hand, adding a layer of physical sacrifice to his statistical achievements. Visual evidence of the soft cast during press interviews became a shorthand for the frustration of the 2018 campaign.
Durant puts up a 3. Bell the rebound. They reset. Back to Thompson. 3-pointer. James drives. Goes into the rim. Knocked out of bounds.
The injury marked the end of his peak effectiveness during that championship run. The game established a permanent archetype for the second Cleveland stint of LeBron James.
Missing a 3, Looney with the offensive rebound. Steph corner 3. Got it! Clay with the steal. Clay in a foot race. Cousins trying to catch him. He can't.
His 51 points functioned as a statement of individual superiority over a superior team structure. The performance solidified the narrative of a lone superstar fighting against the most talented roster in basketball history. Analysts frequently cite this specific loss as the moment James reached his absolute ceiling as a basketball player, combining mental mastery of the game with elite physical execution. The series ended in a 4-game sweep, but the memory of Game 1 remains the dominant story of the 2018 Finals. The inability of LeBron James to secure a victory on this night ensured that the dynasty in Oakland would remain unchallenged.